Live from the rumble seat of a 1942 era Willys Jeep, this is the Best Cure Anywhere podcast. I am your host and resident psychopath, Anthony. With me, as always, is the imaginary friend I blame for all of my problems, Ethan.
Yeah, and wait until the driver of this 40s era Willys Jeep finds out that I have requisitioned the brake lines to send home to build my own Jeep once I get
Mm,
back.
and the shenanigans ensue. Hi, Ethan. How are you?
Oh
What goes
man,
on?
I'm so good all the time, all the time. No,
Oh,
it's good. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be sitting and relaxing. I couldn't complain if I wanted to. How about you?
I'm all right. I'm going to warn the audience right now. It's going to be a very free form episode. Look down at the bottom of your iPod or your podcast player, right? You know the runtime of this episode. We don't. It's not going to be 4 hours, but we're going to be here a minute. We got things to talk about. It's the end of season 2, baby. We're here. If we have come so far and yet there is still so far to go. Um yeah. So, before we get into talking about season 2, we need to go on just a tiny, just a small couple of tangents beforehand. Firstly and foremost, uh, before I go off on the several notes I have, Ethan, is there anything new and exciting you would like to share before I steamroll you with everything I have?
Um, I don't know,
So I
man.
w-
Can't Kansas is flat. The corn's coming in. I'm just trying to survive the heat and weld a car back together with very little knowledge of welding, or cars for that matter. So,
I understand you're trying to get a tan.
well, yeah. But as I said earlier, I'm Irish, so that might ultimately be in vain. But I'm so tired of being in pain every time I touch the sun. So, if you're ever in Kansas and see a bright white light, that's probably me in shorts and shirtless, bent over. Well, I was gonna say the hood, but the hood is in my garage, bent over some part or orifice of my 65. You're
Please
welcome.
don't.
By the
Please
way,
don't
please
say that your
donate
car has
to my
orifices.
PayPal. The link will, of course, as always, be in the description below. Will
Oh no.
Sin, WIL-SIN, Will Sin at OnlyFans.com.
No, God, no. That's not PayPal, brother. Um,
Oh yeah, well, I don't know, they're interchangeable. Who hasn't
new
sent nudes over
new
PayPal?
business venture, OnlyFunds. Please just send us money. OnlyFunds. Um, all
But
right.
yeah,
So
that's everything. So
the several item long list of things I want to address before we talk about season 2. Number 1, and I'll share this. I didn't share this on our any of our pages yet because I wanted to make sure we at least got it on recording first. I was surprised by something the other day. My fabulous sister-in-law, who is about ready in the next few weeks to open up her own little vintage. Uh, I don't know what to call it. She's big into the thrifting. For anyone out there who is in the know, the concept of going to like the local thrift stores and seeing what's there, not just like the random stuff, but finding like the actual thing, like, oh, this person didn't realize they donated a $500 dress, or that sort of stuff, or like cool old vintage shit that like there's not a lot of anymore. So just today, she gets most of this stuff for free because she's fucking insane, and we love that. Um, like she literally, I just saw this in her pile of stuff she was sorting through when I got to the office today, and it's one of those little like old wooden wall thermometer and barometers, and I'm like, oh, that looks cool. And she's like, you can have it. I'm like, all right. Um, but she walked in while I was doing stuff the other day, and the thing she brought me is a matchbook. And on that matchbook, there will be photos on the video, and you can go to our social media and see pictures. It is an olive drab army green matchbook. Official products: uh, MASH 4077 matchbook, uh, on the back over the striker pad is a very old black and white print dot picture of a lady wearing a what I'm assuming to be olive green shirt with white lettering that says MASH War 77th. And on the inside of the matchbook is an order form to order the t-shirt pictured on the back. Order your MASH t-shirt today. Send to Ethan, do you want to know what the name of this Matchbox promotion company is?
What is the name of this matchbook?
Striking it rich.
God damn it.
That wins best company name on the internet. 1278 Mercantile Street, Oxnard, California.
That just sounds like a
Can I get? This sounds like something Radar would order.
Yeah, 100%.
From the Striking It Rich company of Oxnard, California. Oh no.
Oh, actually, it does say olive drab and white logo. $7.95 plus $125. I can't make out that
postage and handling. P&H. Please do not send the matches. It says on the bottom of the foldout. Yeah. MASH t-shirt, olive drab, white logo. Please circle your size. Add 6% tax. Or you can get the their catalog where you can order other television and movie memorabilia. So yeah, that's kind of cool. MasterCard and Visa only. Interesting. So yeah, that was a cool find. That's gonna probably go in the picture frame that I have with the signed portrait of Alan Alda by the signpost and the MASH patch that I have in there with it. So that was kind of cool.
I'm very, very much looking forward to exploring your sister-in-law's. I'm going to refer to it as a vintage boutique because that's as close of a definition as I can.
Yeah, so she's opening up on middle of July. Trailer Park Thrift. And all her branding is like bubblegum pink and like 50s like think like Marilyn Monroe pinup girl type energy. Very cool.
Well,
she got the flair for it.
I'm just gonna say this. I have to say it. Can't wait to shop there. However, it is my opinion that the upper middle class college students of the world have ruined thrifting for the rest of us.
You know, I kind of thought that initially when she started doing it. No, she's that. She's not that, but I agree that group of people have done that.
And I'm not saying she is.
She's more of the. I think the way she does it is more like, and this is gonna be a weird comparison, but like Indiana Jones. Like he's going out to like preserve these lost treasures as opposed to. And like, yeah, she's selling them for profit, but like it's more of a, I want to see this go to someone who knows what it is and appreciates it, as opposed to sitting on the shelf at a Goodwill until they junk it. Like, she's also my line on old vintage Boy Scout patches. So, you know,
yeah, the Lord Baden-Powell one looks.
There's a really cool one. Any Scout patch that has a really good rendering of Lord Baden-Powell is a winner. But this one, I'll put a picture of it up too. It's gray background with like the maroon kind of Golden Gate colored stitching for the San Francisco Council, and then Baden-Powell in the center. It's very good. So yeah, cool MASH matchbook. The other thing I'll mention is I was at the Truckee Regional Air Show this weekend, and I need to give a shout out. I don't think they are aware or listen to the podcast, but I do need to give a shout out to the Cross Country Convoys group. This is a group of guys who own vintage military vehicles, and they do convoys that are, I'm not sure, I didn't get a chance to ask how specifically it works, but they'll put big magnets on the side of each of their vehicles that's dedicated. So like the picture of one I had is honoring our veterans, Clareland Bud Lamberson, Staff Sergeant, 1932-26, served U.S. Army from 1950 to 1958. So probably a Korean War vet, ironically enough. But they'll do like ceremonial convoys, raising money for veterans groups, stuff like that. Their biggest one was Route 66, Chicago to Santa Barbara, in old vintage military equipment. But one of the gentlemen there, by the name of, and I have it here somewhere, stand by. Doot, 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 doot. By the name of Dan Seaborg. His title is the Convoy Poet, apparently. He owns a Vietnam era medical ambulance that you'll see pictures of on the screen if you're watching the video, or again, go to our social media. Ethan already knows the answer to this. I could tell immediately by looking at the ambulance. The seats are covered in old, not old, but worn because they've been used. They're covered in old T-shirts that say "Mash 407 7th" on it, and I can see him sitting over there under his Easy Up in his "Mash 407 7th" T-shirt, his olive drab T-shirt. So I'm like, okay, man's a fan of the show, right? So I go talk to him, introduce myself. I tell him about the podcast. So he's like, "Oh, I'll show you around. I'll show you around the ambulance." He's poking it out, pointing stuff out. I ask him to pose for a picture because he has the Groucho nose and glasses and the straw hat. And I'm like, this is getting perfect. And he's like, hey, guess what my call sign is? Ethan already knows the answer. Audience, I'll give you a second. Take a guess what his call sign is for the convoy. You're wrong. It's Captain Tuttle. Uh, now, when he said that, audience, I know you know my thoughts on the Captain Tuttle um, thing, for lack of a better word. This is a good version of using Captain Tuttle as a reference, and I will tell you why. It is similarly to what I've said on the show before. I like the subtle references to stuff. Having your convoy name driving a military hospital ambulance be Captain Tuttle is a subtle reference to MASH. Obviously, with the T-shirt he's wearing and other stuff are obvious references. That is a subtle. Oh yeah, you probably know about the show MASH, but if you know, like we do, if you watch the show religiously, you'll pick up on the Captain Tuttle reference immediately. And it's like, I see what you did there. That's funny. It's not, haha, my favorite character is Captain Tuttle, the guy that doesn't actually exist. Oh, haha, maybe it was this was a much better Captain Tuttle reference than I'm used to seeing. So props to those guys. The again, that is the where's the name of their thing here? The Cross Country Convoys group. Very cool dudes. Had a lot of fun chatting with them.
Yeah, see where I'm located, people's call signs aren't nearly that sophisticated. Although me and Love Handle on his big 18-wheeler do have many very long discussions about modern philosophy. So
uh, speaking, and I was at an air show, so I heard a bunch of call signs. My favorite was the uh purple P-51 Mustang call sign plum crazy. I kind of love that. But anyway, we had some other things to address here. Let's get not the elephant in the room, but kind of big mash news that happened since we last recorded. Unfortunately, we have lost the original, the OG, the first to do it. Donald Sutherland has passed away, the original Hawkeye Pierce from Robert Altman's MASH film. Yeah, I'll say this, would not have hit as significantly had we not watched the movie. I'm glad we were able to watch the movie. Not that watching it before or after his passing would have made a difference in how much we enjoyed it, but I I, I was bummed to hear that news. It sucks. Lots of love going out in the MASH community, and I'm glad there was, because we talked about that with Mike Jameson. Is yeah, you love the TV show, but have you watched the movie? And I don't think there's nearly enough people that have watched the movie. So if you haven't watched MASH the motion picture, go do it. Appreciate Donald Sutherland's performance and the performance of the rest of the cast, because they were fucking awesome. But any thoughts on the great Donald Sutherland?
just that I have been doing that little Hawkeye whistle that he so perfectly does in
Man,
the
you know what
film
I
in
did? You know what I did?
solidarity.
Man, you know what I did right before we
What
started
was that?
recording? I put a message out on our Patreon. We have a Patreon. Go check it out. to all the members, not paid members, but all the members. So you do have to join the Patreon at least the free tier to see most of our posts. But I put the message out like, hey, when we do watch a movie between season 2 and 3, because that's the plan, what movie should we watch? Obviously, we've talked about Bedtime for Bonzo. I know you're going to kill me if we don't do Easy Rider at some point.
Hmm.
What if we watched Kelly's Heroes in memory of Donald Sutherland?
We definitely do need to get
we
some input on what to watch because we have a lot of
we
good
have so
ideas, and
many
that is
options.
definitely a good one.
The other one is the film that Alan Alda was working on right before he signed contract to become I can't remember the name of it. That was the one I was thinking of too, but yeah, I will go add to that. That would be it's very loosely MASH related, and it's absolutely not related to the TV show. I don't think. No, there was someone else in Kelly's Heroes on MASH. I just can't remember who. Was it Paulie? Was it a oh, why can't I think of the actor's name? I'll look it up later, but that is an option. So Twitter people, don't you worry. We are gonna once we get a couple more solid ideas for films, we'll put an actual poll out and we'll go based off the highest one, I think. So yeah, Donald Sutherland passed. That's a bummer. So yeah. Now, one more bit of MASH stuff before we get rolling here. We did have some fan mail, and I wanted to include it at the front end because I just wanted to. I'm, what I say goes. So some fan mail, Ethan. We have fan mail from the email. We haven't had this in honestly almost over a year since the end of season 1. But we have two messages. May I read them to you, Ethan?
Yeah, I would greatly appreciate it.
And Ethan is appreciative of that because I was supposed to send these to him. I forgot
On 2 separate occasions over
on
the course of the
two
last
separate
week.
occasions. It's not like I've been so busy. Can I just let you know my world right now, audience? One of my scouts is at camp right now with 106-degree fever, and it's stressing me out a little bit. So I'm sorry, Ethan, but that'll happen today. That's not an excuse for why I didn't send it to you over the last 2 weeks. So that's
Unless,
that's
of
my
course, you're
excuse for
psychic, which,
possibly.
what are the winning Powerball numbers? Come on.
I don't know. So the first one is from Kathy A. She says, I've been listening since it started, and I really like your whole production. It's loads of fun. A few pop culture and history notes. She loved our deep dive into Marlena Dietrich. She most definitely was a badass. Since it's Pride Month, she wanted to note that she is also an LGBTQ plus icon because of her Oscar-nominated role in Morocco, most remembered for the sequence where she performs a song dressed in a man's white tie. Not sure if that means she was only dressed in a man's white tie or just the white tie was part of the outfit.
Don't
Unclear.
worry,
Might need to watch.
I'll do some looking.
Ethan's gonna do some research, but also kisses another woman in the scene. So
God,
also
the more I hear about her, just
also in my realm of more German Christmas music to add to my playlist. Apparently, she does a German cover of Little Drummer Boy, which sounds either really good or slightly terrifying. Not sure. And I did tell you this, Ethan, because it was such a wild fun fact. We talked about the Frank getting accused of calling in and supporting a Martin Bormann telethon, right?
mm-hmm.
So apparently that's not the only reference to Martin Bormann in the 70s, because this was at a time before we had identified his remains in Berlin. So everyone thought he ran to South America.
Mm-hmm.
I have, as much as I'm a World War II and a movie nerd, I did not know this till Kathy told me. And I had to go confirm it like 2 different ways because I could not believe this. Ethan, I know I asked you, but you're familiar with Gene Wilder's Willy Wonka, the best Willy Wonka.
Of course, the best one.
And I asked if you remembered the 5th ticket winner before Charlie found his ticket, the fake ticket winner, the sham ticket winner, was a millionaire in Paraguay or Uruguay, one of the Guays. And they said, this here is a picture of the billionaire. It's Martin Bormann. It is a picture of Martin Bormann. Gene Wilder's Willy Wonka slipped a fucking Nazi joke into the middle of the movie, and I have not known for 20 years. That is so great. Oh,
Gene
it's so
Wilder
fucking good.
is just something else.
That is so good. Yeah, that's wild. Other than that, she just wanted to share that info and express her appreciation for all our hard work. So thank you, Kathy. We appreciate it.
I can't
The
believe that there are people that I've not alienated yet. I promise, be patient. I will get to you.
Man, it's funny you should say that because our next email comes from Sarah. Whoops, I let me click on the actual email, not the reply I sent. Also, Kathy, I don't think I replied to you directly. Thank you for writing in. Again, I said this a couple weeks ago. We are currently in the chaotic times for Anthony, so if Anthony forgot to do something, I apologize. Sarah says, "Hello, Anthony and Ethan. Uh, First, I really enjoy your podcast. I listen to, I think, all the MASH podcasts. There's a surprising number now. There's MASHcast with Rob Kelly, ours, MASH Matters. There's the MASH Mouth podcast. Yeah, there's about a few. There's about a few MASH podcasts. And she's always glad to see when a new episode drops. Get ready, Ethan. Being from Scotland and born the year after MASH ended, it's always been a source of bemusement to my family and friends why I like it so much. I got I got into the show while living in Saudi Arabia in the late 80s and 90s. We first got satellite TV in 1992, so it was a good double bill to watch Adam West Batman and MASH doing homework. That is
Yes.
a combination. She did shout at her speaker Rebecca when we were unsure that Becky was short for Rebecca. We're never gonna live that down. And she said a couple of our other comments during that episode caused her to want to get in touch. She was very delighted to hear that other people were tickled by the Henry and Klinger Bolsheviks no really exchange. It's her favorite pun in the series, which it is a good pun. That's great. I'm a Marxist card carrying Bolshevik. No, really. She also mentions that in discussion of the timeline of the show, which, man, we're eventually going to have to sit down and break down whether the MASH works in a timeline. But the way she reconciles it in her brain is that apart from a few fixed points, the episodes do not take place in chronological order. So it's possible that a series 1 episode takes place, well, can't take place after a series 3 episode. Well, it can take place after a few series 3 episodes.
Careful.
It definitely can't take place after the last series
Careful.
It does not cover all the times they reference a specific date, but I choose to ignore this, like every other fan of MASH. Yeah, it could be more like an anthology series, where stuff isn't happening in a specific order. But yeah, that is a too big of a topic to unpack right now. But it is, yeah, that is. I do want to do an episode where we try to hash out our own timeline for how MASH works, but that's going to require work, and I'm not in the mood to do that right now. So yeah, thank you, Sarah and Kathy, for reaching out via email. Ethan, I promise I will forward you more send anyone listening, please email us with your thoughts, opinions, comments, and stuff, so that I can share it with Ethan, unlike these two that I forgot to. I'm sorry, Ethan. Ethan's sending me gifts.
It's okay. I'm trying.
It's the Ethan sent me the It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia red string board. Trying to figure out the MASH timeline. Yeah, that honestly, that's what it's gonna look like. I might have to start now with trying to figure that out in order to talk about it by the end of season 11. The Infinity Stones might have to get involved. But anyway. So yeah, fan mail, matchbook, ambulance at the air show. Okay. I think we're ready to dive into season 2 discussions.
Man, it is, I think not quite often, but every now and again, I hear your words ringing in my ears when we first started this podcast of, what is it, 90% don't make it past the first 5 episodes or something to that effect?
Oh yeah, it's if you've made 7 episodes of a podcast, you're in the top like 8 percentile of podcasts. If you
And
count
here we are,
every time people sit down around a microphone and try to make one. Yeah.
2 seasons and 2.5 years into this.
Oh yeah. Mhm. You're not wrong.
Uh,
These are all facts that you're saying.
it's, I don't know. It's been a hell of a ride, and we've scratched the surface.
So
I
so
love it.
on that note, thinking back to before you've watched, because again, for audience, if you need refreshing, this is not Ethan's like virgin MASH experience. He was aware of MASH, he had seen MASH before, but Ethan, from that very first beginning to talk about during this podcast and watching the first couple episodes, how are you feeling about MASH now that you're 48 episodes in? Your end of season 2. How are we feeling about it? Just in general.
I feel like it's really found its legs. It's trimmed
Okay.
the fat, it's gotten rid of some characters for better or worse. But from where it is now, it has a good place to stand and a
Mhm.
lot of room for improvement. Not in a bad way, but it has so many opportunities to grow.
Mhm. Okay. I would agree. Yeah, I said this for season 1. Season 1 was rough. They were trying to please the network. They weren't in a good time slot. They were trying to write episodes that the network would like and they thought the audience would like, but also trying to like get that message out. This isn't just going to be another McHale's Navy or Hogan's Heroes. There's going to be some meat on this bone. Uh, so that's how we got episodes like Sometimes You Hear the Bullet, and I'll even throw like Chief Surgeon Who in there a little bit, kind of the hey, this is a silly show, but it's also a war. Which, if you'll remember, that was Alan Alda's big thing was I'm not I'm not doing a comedy about war. I want to incorporate some seriousness into it. But yeah, I would agree. Season 2 is definitely a better fleshing out of a lot of those things, both from you get a couple more serious moments, but you also get more character depth and not better comedy, just less. I don't know, more realistic isn't even the word I want to go to. It's the comedy isn't just there for the audience to laugh; it's there in universe. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Hawkeye tells the joke to make the people in the swamp laugh. It's not Alan Alda telling a joke to make the audience laugh.
The universe that it is contained in has become real unto itself.
Yes, bingo. So, um, I'm trying. Despite listening to the last season wrap up episode we did, I've forgotten the kind of order we did things. But what were some of your standout moments for this season? Either again broadly or very specifically. I know we'll get into character specific stuff uh in a little bit, but broadly, what were some of your favorite things about this season?
There are quite a few standout moments to me in the season. I think the introduction of some characters that I'm really looking forward to seeing again,
Mm-hmm.
of course. Uh, you know what stands out to me a lot? I know you're looking for broad strokes, but I'm gonna dive in.
You can dive in. Yeah, go ahead.
5 o'clock Charlie.
Okay.
The scene where Frank has finally gotten his nug, and Trapper and Hawkeye walk up to him and start doing their bit, their
Mm-hmm.
regular army shtick. That is
Mm-hmm.
that is one of the funniest pieces, not only in MASH but in uh, TV that I have personally seen.
You know where my brain went as soon as you said that is that scene. I didn't think of Hawkeye and Trapper. I thought of that weird moment where Frank's like, and that shows you the limits of Oriental thinking. Looks at the three South Korean soldiers with him. Anyway, all right, and we're back. All right, sorry, I had to fix something on my end. So, uh, Ethan, we were talking about favorite moments from the season.
Um, I believe it was the Dear Dad episode. I could be mistaken, but I believe it is from that episode when Klinger and Frank get into a fight, and Klinger intends to blow him up with a grenade when Father Mulcahy stops him.
Yes.
Was that the Dear Dad episode?
Was Let's see,
Because
now
it
you
was
got
one
me.
of the anthologies, if you will.
See, now you got me thinking, is that a season 1 episode? It's easy to get mashed up, if that makes sense. Especially the early seasons, I think.
Well, sort of what I wanted to springboard off of that and ask you is when do we start getting more of the, I don't want to call them side characters, but I also wouldn't consider at this point Klinger or Father Mulcahy main cast.
This is
But
true.
I really like them as characters on their own, and I want to see more of them. And they haven't quite scratched that itch yet. So
That's
I'm
fair.
wondering if that gets addressed more in season 3.
You know, that's I didn't think to do it. Let me do it right now. I'm gonna pull up a list of season 3 episodes. I'm gonna skim them real quick
Aw.
because that is a great question. So for Klinger and Father Mulcahy, while I'm skimming these, I'll mention that we did get a couple little moments. I think Klinger was a little bit more in a few of the episodes, but something you said in an episode pointed out the times they didn't use Klinger was notable, specifically in George. I liked, again, assuming or not assuming that that was a conscious choice. Uh, it is it is interesting to me that Klinger wasn't in that episode. I'm glad you pointed that out because I never really noticed that intentionally.
I know.
Um,
It surprises me too when I have intelligent thoughts on really anything. I try to suppress them, but here we are.
Yep, here we are. Um, I will say I'm skimming through season 3 right now. Again, just looking at names of episodes mostly and quickly skimming the descriptions. There are a couple of episodes that aren't focused on Father Mulcahy or Klinger, but Mulcahy and Klinger. I almost said Father Mulklinger and Cahy.
Oh
Um,
God.
they are incorporated much more regularly. Um, so they are necessarily the driving force of a plot, but they have a much they have a bigger hand than they normally would in the events going on, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Specifically, episodes that I think Klinger you'll notice him in is particularly one called Springtime. That is you're gonna love that episode, I think. But
Mm.
yeah. Um, what else? What else? So yeah, Klinger and Father Mulcahy are going to be more prevalent. I can promise you that without spoiling anything. So okay, I've got a question.
Okay.
So this is a similar question to what I just asked you, but slightly different in its wording.
Yeah, you're gonna have to word things
Where
very specifically for me. You know that by now.
what? Because we posed the question at the end of this of season 1. What were you looking forward to in season 2? And again, that's a question that's impossible for me to answer because I know all things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, did thinking back to season 1 and what you wanted for season 2, what did season 2 meet some of your expectations, and if so, how?
Season 2 gave us, I wouldn't call it character development because we're not really, from what I understand, at that stage of the show yet. But we flushed out the characters a lot more, as you brought up previously. And
Mhm.
so I feel like I'm a lot more familiar with them. I sort of have more concrete expectations from them. Think I have better thoughts on their actions. There are a few things that I feel they fell short on, but that just it's a matter of personal preference, and to expect all of my wants and desires to be met is just unrealistic.
Fair. Speaking of that,
Overall, I am
oh, go
very
ahead.
happy. Go on.
So speaking of that, was there anything? What are you feeling? We now that we're at the end of season 2, where are you feeling like, I was waiting for this to happen and it never did, or like, what was there anything season 2 could have done differently or better?
I think you already know what I'm going to say, and it's certainly not going to stop me from saying it.
Okay.
Just give my boy Trapper or something.
All right. And with that, let's talk about the
Yep.
characters. No.
Yep, there we go. Yeah,
and
that's
we're
it.
gonna lead off right out the gate since you brought him up. Let's do similarly to what we did last time and just character by character do a quick run through.
Mhm.
How
Oh, yeah, I
how
forgot about that. That was a
yeah,
good one.
just a short little how are we doing? Do we like how they got used? Uh do we what do we want to see out of them going forward? That type of thing. So let's start with our favorite two-fisted drinking heart of gold, total Father McIntyre. Uh, Wayne Rogers, Trapper John. You're the big fan of Trapper. How did Trapper do this season?
I know, and I just said that I didn't think he got used as much as I would have liked, but I will say that he got some very good moments. Um, I'm trying to think of the episode where the Korean POW ends up killing one of his patients.
I believe that is Radar's report.
Uh,
I have for people who might be hearing me flip through a book right now. I am looking at Susie Coulter's The Big Book of Mash, the Holy Bible.
oh, was
Because
was
it's
that be?
easier.
Yeah,
It's
because
easier. Yeah.
Hawkeye fell for that nurse, and the it ended because she was
That was the
saying
berserk
some.
Chinese prisoner. Yeah,
Yep,
yeah, yeah,
yep,
yeah,
yep,
yeah.
yep.
Yep, that
Yeah,
was Radar's report.
yeah.
So
So,
can I just make one complaint about Susie Coulter's book? And I'm so sorry, Susie, and all the fans of
oh,
MASH who love this book. I love it so much. It has great interviews with the cast. It has great set pictures. It has great uh descriptions for each episode. I have one qualm, and I know why you chose to do this because there's two choices you could have made, and you picked one. The episodes are listed in production order, not release order, which is not a problem unless you're trying to find the episodes and you know what order they're in. And then
that
I
that
look at this
is
and
an
I panic because I'm like, oh my god, was that episode before this episode? That changes everything. That is my only qualm with this book, but I love it.
that is an
So continue.
interesting choice for that
But
book, by the way.
it makes sense because it's more of like history. It's more of a treatise about the show, not it's not for the casual fan, so having it in production order is like a more uh research style way of doing it. But you anyway, we're getting distracted from
No, no,
Trapper.
not at all.
So what were some of the strong moments for Trapper? You had mentioned the scene with the Chinese POW and well not the yeah,
Well,
continue.
of course, the ending scene, and I'm sure I've said this before, something to this effect, but uh, I don't know. Like it's not really a bit. I know I say stupid things because I think I'm funny, but I do really resonate a lot with Wayne Rogers' portrayal of Trapper, or at least as I see him. Sort of the joking, jovial, uh, etc., whatever you want to call him, if not a little overly emotional, willing to act on emotions, uh, for better or worse, and in my case, usually worse. It really resonates with me, especially that scene. The look in Wayne Rogers' eye when he's looking at the Chinese POW, knowing that uh, he lost a patient because of the outburst. It's that was also a really large highlight of this season. There is just some genuinely strong acting in this season that I feel like we didn't get as much of in season 1 that made it a lot more enjoyable.
Yeah, yeah.
I hope I'm
Um,
making some
no, no,
semblance
no.
of
I
sense.
think for me, the moments that were really strong for Trapper were obviously that moment. I think the episode Kim was a big
Mhm.
one for him too. Both in the aspect that he felt like his being there had a purpose, his line, but then having that purpose kind of shot out from under him. Like he did a good thing, but it kind of everything worked out good, but it still kind of bummed him out. And
Yeah.
then you had the him wanting to go home and see his girls in mail call, and you brought up something very interesting that is I'm gonna hit you over the head with it in about a year and a half. You mentioned that you thought, and I listened to it just today.
Mhm.
You mentioned that you thought Trapper is the type of person that if he sees the opportunity to get back to his girls, he will take it.
I am letting you
With
know after
without
having some
without
time.
and accepting any and all consequences that come with that choice.
Yeah. And I am letting you know that as of right now, several weeks and or months after saying that, I still stand by that statement. So if
Oh
it
yeah, no.
turns out that I am completely and 100% mistaken, I will wear that with pride
No,
because that is my understanding of the character as it is.
Ethan, what genealogical background is Trapper John McIntyre?
I
You
would
know,
imagine deeply Irish.
that's very interesting. Um,
Or is it
man, I wonder if the
Scottish?
Irish. I wonder
Is
if
it
the
Scottish?
It's Irish. I wonder if the Irish are known for any specific, things they do when it comes to leaving. All right, so
You son of a bitch.
dude, I'm so ready for you to be so angry at Trapper.
uh
He Irish goodbyes to the fuck out of camp. I'm just gonna.
Um,
I,
so no, I suppose to sort of wrap up my rambles on the thoughts of Trapper John, fleshed out as a character, I still think underutilized, but I think given what I know about the show from you, I'm always going to think that, and I should
you're
probably
always
just
gonna be
get over it.
disappointed. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
but I will say this: there were several moments this episode. Incubator was one of them. Uh, and a couple others. Mail call also. Not mail call. What was the other one that we said? There were several times where instead of stepping behind Hawkeye, he was stepping up with Hawkeye more. Definitely not to the extent they needed him to satisfy Wayne and obviously the Trapper fanboys, but and fangirls and fan days. We don't discriminate here. Um, but yeah, I think I agree. I think Trapper got fleshed out a lot more. But he is still the die has already been cast in a sense. Uh,
yeah,
the they and again, I said this during the season 1 wrap up. It's not that Wayne Rogers is not a good actor. It's that Alan Alda is a really good actor. It's not anything that Wayne Rogers is doing wrong. It's the writers could be more cognizant of what they're doing. I think that's could be part of it. But if you have Wayne and Alan on the stage for a scene, you're gonna give the meat to Alan. Like I hate to say it. It's yeah, I don't know. And part of that could again, I think I even said this in the season 1 wrap up. That might be bias on my part because I watched the show they produced where they didn't use Trapper as much. So I don't know. I don't know. I think Wayne. I think we can see why Wayne again. Spoilers, but not really. Ethan is aware of this. Eventually, Wayne Rogers does leave the show. It'll be interesting to see how and why and how they deal with it. Uh, in a perfect world, Ethan, because we
mhm.
do have more time with Trapper. I'm not going to clarify how much time, but we do have more time with Trapper. What? How would you like to see them utilize Trapper? We've gotten some character development out of him. Now that you know some of that character development, what is there anything you would like to see done with Trapper going forward, other than just the blanket use him more? What do we want to explore about Trapper?
That is a really, really good question.
Thank you. That's why I asked it.
Shut up. Uh, trying to figure out how to articulate my thoughts, which I don't usually do well anyway. But
And this is a hard question. Even if you asked me, knowing what happens, I it would be difficult for me to answer because a lot of the things I want to see them do with Trapper, a lot of the strings I want to see them pull, they do pull them, just
so
not with Trapper.
I think to answer the best way I can answer your question is, uh, I agree. You said it earlier. I agree with Alan Alda's vision of the show. He wants it to not just be another Hogan's Heroes or something. It can be a comedy, but it is also in a war zone.
Hmm.
And as I stated, having someone who has the propensity for operating on base emotion more than rationality, like Trapper, in a war zone lends itself to some really good storylines if you just utilize that aspect of the character.
Yeah. Yeah, because part of my brain goes, okay, what if Hawkeye didn't go into that room during when he was angry with the Chinese POW? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
it, absolutely.
there there is room to explore that Trapper's a good dude. He is a very good dude, but he is also prone to getting very angry. And not I don't want to say that like Trapper's like, like some sort of like psychopath that flies off the handle, but he was moved to serious emotion to the point that he would have broken his Hippocratic oath. What happens when no one's around to cool his jets, so to speak?
Exactly.
Interesting, interesting. So yeah, Ethan, I'm gonna make you feel better. We have Wayne through the entirety of season 3. We
Yes.
He's not leaving soon. And I realize as I say that that is technically a minor spoiler for an episode, but it's okay. I want to I make fun of the fact that at some point you're going to have Trapper John torn from your cold dead hands, but you get him for all of season 3. So I will inform you of that.
I appreciate that. It does mean a lot.
On that note, the next character I want to talk about, we get for 99.999% of season 3.
You son of a bitch. Why? Why?
Because it's fun.
Yeah.
Colonel Henry Blake, or sorry, Lieutenant Colonel Henry Blake.
Hmm.
Um, Again, I know if somehow you have not been paying attention to the episodes, Ethan clarified for us last time. Ethan is aware of an event that happens at the end of season 3. He is not aware how. I think that'll make watching that episode very interesting, and we're going to try to do it live somehow, or record it at least. But how do we feel about Henry in season 2?
I don't feel that he changed a lot, but I don't feel that he needed to.
I
I
don't think
think
he changed. Nah, I would
right.
agree. I don't think he changed. I do appreciate that we got some episodes, again, I'll say right now, some episodes good or bad,
Hmm.
that explored because he's the oldest doctor. He is in his 40s, whereas Frank, Hawkeye, and Trapper are late 20s, mid to mid 30s, if that, right? Like I think we estimated that like Hawkeye, Trapper, and Frank are like maybe 30 to 35 at most, I think. Uh but yeah, it's I'm glad we got a couple episodes that show his struggles being away at war because they're different than Frank and Trapper and Hawkeye's. Yeah, Trapper and Frank have a wife and kids, but Henry is a more seasoned doctor. He had a private practice. He's got older kids. He has the suburban, lifestyle, his wife's, out doing the suburbanite wife things. Uh Inadvert, having children while let me rephrase. Got his wife pregnant before he left, had a son while he was away. has, is worried that, you know, his wife might, you know, not cheat on him, but be tempted. Uh he is tempted and has a wandering eye. I think there were a couple of good stories. Even I'll even give credit a little bit to Henry and Love, as much as we did not care for that episode on its whole. I think the specific theme of what's going on with Henry? What's Henry doing? Like what's Henry's brain space like was appreciated.
Yeah, yeah.
Um Man, Ethan, I'm going to be real mean for asking this question.
Yo.
But before I do, I'll mention I do think we also got to see some good leadership, more not better leadership. I won't say good, but better leadership from Henry. Specifically in oh, which one was it? The Trial of Henry Blake was probably the best episode for Henry this season. Crisis was also pretty good. Chosen People was fun, where he's just trying to mitigate the Korean family moving in and Radar potentially getting someone pregnant. Um, Wonderful.
I would like to disagree with you on one point before you ask the really main
Please
question.
disagree with me.
I think the trial of Henry Blake was not really a failing on Henry Blake's part, but to get meta, I think the writing sort of failed Henry in that particular episode. And I believe I mentioned this
I am
at the
so
time of
curious.
recording.
So the Trial of Henry Blake, the one where Henry is Margaret and Frank have sent in reports that Henry is a poor leader and he's potentially going to be court-martialed for it, specifically for aiding and abetting, quote, the enemy, unquote. Why
Uh,
what about that episode do you think the writing has failed? Because there's a fact about that episode that you have forgotten that is going to be real funny.
I'm sure, but and remind you, I'll remind you that this is my memory of it several times, several months removed.
True,
But
fair. That's fair.
my memory of the episode is he was guilty, but he wasn't guilty because what he did was provided aid to uh, a Korean citizen. Isn't
Yes.
that more or less correct?
It's Margaret and Frank blanketed the
Exactly.
term
Yeah.
North Korean to any North Korean, and the army thought he was giving medicine to a enemy military unit, when in reality he's giving aid and comfort. He's giving supplies to Nurse Craddy so that she can help the
Yeah.
unaligned
That's right.
civilians who just happen to live on the wrong side of a line on a map make it out of this war at least a little bit intact. Yes.
The thing I didn't care for about that episode is that he is sort of his I bumbling is not a fair word, but it's the word I'm going to use because I can't think of a better one. He's sort of his bumbling Henry self in front of the military court until the very final scene where they burst in with Nurse Craddy, Dr. Craddy,
Interesting. Interesting. Nurse.
Nurse
So
Craddy.
in a way, I don't think the writing is hurting Henry. I think if I'm looking at this from an in-universe perspective, Henry is not supposed to be in charge of a military unit. That is not the person he is. He is there because he got drafted to be there, and the only reason he's in charge is because he's a decade older. That's it.
Right.
I think Henry being bumbling in that moment, because I think there is that moment about halfway through the episode where he's like, when he's trying to explain the Kentucky Derby, he has that moment. He's like, "Well, sir, prior to the Kentucky Derby, we handled this many casualties over this amount of period." And then he starts being like, "Oh, I need to prove it. Oh, I got the notes right here." And he starts getting flustered. I think that's more of a Henry. One should not be in a military conflict commanding troops. That is not his strength. He certainly is not capable of dealing with a military tribunal. That is, he is so far out of his comfort zone that he is panicking. And it's at the end when he sees that he has support and his case is a little more laid out. He says, all I did was provide help to Nurse Craddy because if not, one out of every three of the babies of the Hill people would die within a day of being born. All I did was give them some help, and I didn't deprive our kids of one thing. Like yeah, I gamed the system, but I gamed it to do a good thing. I think that's what he stands up for himself. I don't think it's so much the writing fails him. I think that Henry Blake is not supposed to be sitting before a military tribunal. He should be like cleaning golf balls at the country club in Bloomington, Illinois. Like this is so far out of his comfort zone. So I would disagree it's not a writing thing. It is yeah. Henry's a bumbling idiot because Henry's a bumbling idiot and he is terrified that he's going to get shot on a firing squad
So
because of a
so yours
misunderstanding.
when he has proof and facts and figures to rely on to demonstrate,
It's he's
he can be
overwhelmed.
more
He's
okay.
overwhelmed. He's overwhelmed by the situation. And you know
Okay,
why I
you know
thought it
what?
was
That
funny?
huh.
You know why I thought it was funny that you're like the writing? I think the writing failed Henry. Ethan, do you remember who wrote the Trial of Henry Blake?
Was it Henry Blake himself?
It was McLean Stevenson.
Yeah, yeah.
No,
Mm.
no. I think Henry got better this season. I think he's still the same lovable kind of father figure,
Mhm.
but they gave him a little bit more depth, other than he's just goofy dad energy.
Yeah, I really loved seeing all of his kids in Dear Dad 3. That that was just so heartwarming, and
Yeah,
I'm sure that
the
will never
movie.
come back to haunt me, you know? That home
Yeah,
movie with his family and his neighbors
yeah.
and his home and his beautiful wife. Yeah,
You
that was
can't.
that.
Was it? Man, I'm gonna get Henry Blake moments mixed up. I hope I'm not spoiling something. Is it Henry in Love where Radar he gets a call from his wife because Radar set it up, and he's like, Andrew, you can't hit your sister with the dog.
Yeah, because if I remember correctly, that's how he finds out that his
Yeah.
wife is
Ah, yes,
several $100 overdrawn and he
yes,
needs to balance her checkbook.
yes. My wife. Yeah, because he says to Radar, my wife was very happy that I called her.
Yeah.
Well, I figured
Uh
since you didn't have time to write a letter, thank you, Radar.
All right. So what before we I got us lost on that, what was the question that you wanted to
Well,
hurt me
same
with?
question. I mean, same question as Trapper.
Uh,
What would you like to see in season 3?
I would like to see Henry go home and live a happy and full and complete life with his beautiful family and watch his children grow up to be successful adults and have barbecues and grow fat and old and go peacefully in his sleep at the ripe old age of 95.
Damn, that's crazy.
Um
In serious, again, there's people pulling their hair out in the audience. Sorry, Ethan knows the big spoiler. We'll get there when we get there.
okay, yeah,
But in
I guess I
seriousness,
should probably give a
prior
serious answer.
prior to that point, what other? Because again, knowing all things, I think we get some really. I don't want to say some of them are kind of tragic moments for Henry. Not tragic in like they're really good character moments, but they are a little sad, especially in retrospect. But what would you like to see? What any other things you would like to see explored with Henry?
I could see a really good storyline where Hawkeye and or Trapper go over his head as they are sort of prone to doing, but it sort of blows up in Henry's face, and Henry actually does have to kind of bring the hammer down as the commanding officer of the 4077th.
Okay.
Like I don't want to see him wield his authority in every episode, but I think there is a good storyline to be had there to sort of gently remind uh, not just the viewer but also the unit as a whole that while he is not supposed to be in charge, as you put it, he
Hmm.
has to be. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like I understand the last two answers have been sort of serious for what I understand at this point is still a comedy
No,
show, but
you want to see Henry. I think this is something I think I would like to see as well in season 3. Again, even though I know what happens, I want to look for this. That's how I'll frame it. I want to now that I'm looking at this show more analytically for the first time in a long time. What I want to look for is this experience honing Henry's leadership. He's not going
Mm,
back to be chief of surgery in a big hospital somewhere, but is this it's hard to say, oh, what is Henry getting out of his experience in the military? Because he's not a young man like a lot of the other people, but is Henry becoming a better leader and is he dealing with it better? I think
yeah,
is something I want to pay attention to.
exactly.
But anyway. Um yeah. I'll let you what character should we discuss next, Ethan?
You know what? I feel that it's unfair to discuss Henry without following up with his prodigal son, Radar O'Reilly.
Radar O'Reilly. So, Radar O'Reilly, what I think I can safely say we are firmly out of movie radar territory. At the end of
100%.
season 2, we are firmly out of he is the gentle, naive, big-hearted Iowa Tumwa, Iowa farm boy that we will know him for. Well, I say that we will know him for the rest of the show. But the thing I like, and again, not no spoilers, but it's something to look forward to is Radar does grow up in a sense. By the end of his character arc, he is more changed. For better or worse, depending on your opinion, but he the much like I just said, is Henry getting anything out of the war? Uh Radar, knowingly or unknowingly, is going to change, and they're going to be. I again, the conversation for a future time. There are some moments that I think change Radar as a person, and I think that they're important for the show to show. But what we'll be discussing is the execution of those moments. Let's say,
Hmm.
but
Okay.
what are your thoughts on Radar as of right now?
I think the pivot to his non-movie Radar was sort of cemented by the end of season 1.
Mm,
And I really feel that what season 2 has done is present a baseline for him, the bright-eyed and bushy-tailed Iowa farm boy. So there's nowhere to go but up in that sense.
mm-hmm.
So I don't think that this season brought him a bunch of drastic character development, but I don't think it needed to.
Fair. There is one core aspect about Radar this season that will tie into that I've discussed several times this season, but it involves another character, so I won't bring it up quite yet. But I think the thing about Radar is that he is young, he is naive. We've seen him do the high school diploma. He's almost like a teenager. Well, he is a teenager, but he's again, scouting analogy. He's a younger scout right now. He's the how do we the high school diploma company thing from earlier in the show. How do we get Mia? How do we do this in the most efficient way possible? Well, I'm going to look at the answers and not tell Colonel Blake. And how can I make a quick buck? I'm gonna sell style right shoes to the entire camp. How am I gonna get a pen pal? Well, I'm obviously gonna find the nurses all like Hawkeye, so I'm gonna take Hawkeye's picture and Hawkeye's description and basically pretend to be Hawkeye. It's the my one of my favorite quotes of any media is Albus Dumbledore. When we have to choose what is right versus what is easy, Radar is very much in the what is easy camp.
Hmm.
It's easy to make a quick buck. It's easy to lie to a pen pal and say you're a 6'2", dark haired heartthrob. But I think the thing that we're going to see Radar learn over the course of the show is he is a better person than that, and it takes a couple of very strong mentors. I think the two biggest mentors for him right now are Hawkeye and Colonel Blake to guide him to being, and not that Radar is a bad person, but he's young. He's just stepping out into the wider world, and I think it is good that the show I think I said it one of the episodes is Gary Berghoff said you needed a character like Radar for whom all of this was new. That death was new, war was new, sex, the world in general was a new thing to them, and I think Radar is serving that purpose very well. But with that being said, what are you looking for in Radar in season 3?
I just think you hit the nail on the head. I don't know how to further elaborate on your point better than you already have. We've got the sort of naive country kid, and we've
Mm-hmm.
got so much to explore. I don't expect it to all get done in season 3, but I think the ball will probably start rolling, and I'm excited to see that.
I would agree. I'm gonna be looking in season 3, and I'm skimming through the list of season 3 episodes right now, and I'm kind of realizing Radar is very much present, but
Hmm.
I'm curious how it's hard to discuss my thoughts on Radar going forward. I'm gonna look for more moments, and again, we're gonna get into it more here in a minute because I already think I know what character I want to talk about next because of this. I'm gonna be looking for moments where Radar is kind of like I said, he's picking the quick and easy route, and either Hawkeye or McClane, Colonel Blake, or another character helps kind of guide him a little bit and mentor a little bit.
Yeah.
And yeah, there are two big. I'd say there are two or three big moments for Radar in the series, and again, sorry audience, but this is a known thing. One of them happens at the end of season 3, and I think the Radar section of our conversation a year from now is going to be much more interesting. But yeah. So I don't think we can talk about Radar without talking about one of his two, the person who he will admit to at some point looking up to the most in the entire unit. Let's talk about Hawkeye. How are we feeling about Hawkeye in season 2?
I don't really know that he's changed much from season 1, but I don't know that I was expecting him to.
I would say he's a little less aggressively lecherous. Season
Yeah.
1, he was pretty aggressive in his womanizing. He still is, but it's not quite as blunt over the head, if that makes sense.
That's a good point I didn't really pick up on, but I would certainly agree with you there. It
He's
is still
definitely still
present.
a womanizer, but he's not hiding in a sleeping bag in a nurse's footlocker. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh, well, didn't realize I was talking with a prude. God, who among us hasn't hidden out in a sleeping bag in a footlocker?
neither you nor I can fit in a footlocker, so
Not with that attitude, you can't. Break out the sawzall. I am joking, of course. That is a good pickup, though. I don't think I would have put that together had
yeah.
it not been for your
I go
comment.
back and watch the pilot now that you're at the end of season 2, and you're like, damn, Hawkeye is insane. Um, yeah,
Yeah, I guess I don't think it was in the pilot, but it was that season 1 scene where he's talking to the nurse in the mess hall, and she's,
he's
oh,
imagining her naked.
yeah,
Yes.
you're imagining something dirty, aren't you, or something along those lines. And yeah, he's just
You're
picturing her naked very bluntly.
he's like, seeing fantasies again, aren't you? Yeah. Is it the one where I'm naked? Is it something new, or are you just undressing me with your eyes again? Yeah.
Yeah. uh I think one of the things you mentioned if not last season one wrap up, then certainly at some point in the past, is Hawkeye's character. I don't know how to describe it. I think I am looking forward to seeing more of the flaws in Hawkeye.
I think we talked about this a couple times because I think it came up specifically when Trapper goes. It's Crisis when Trapper's the heating officer and he goes and tells off Margaret and Frank for using a hot plate, and Hawkeye keeps like running his mouth and cracking dumb jokes. And I think we had the conversation about how like, hey, eventually other characters in the camp get tired of Hawkeye, and eventually there are moments where you as a viewer might get tired of Hawkeye's shit. And there are a couple of great late season episodes where someone calls Hawkeye out on their bullshit or on his bullshit that week, and it's kind of great because yeah, he's our protagonist. We love him. He's our favorite boy, but he's also kind of a snarky ass. Um, I will say I'd say the other big episode for Hawkeye, and I'll add Margaret in there, is Carry On Hawkeye, where he's the only one who didn't get the flu, and he
That
has
is
to
a good
kind of
episode. Yeah.
he has to step up, but and yet he never loses his you know devilish charm as he's doing it.
I have the IMDb uh, list of all episodes pulled up so I can kind of keep my bearings. And the image they've chosen for Carry On Hawkeye is
Which one did
Margaret
they
stabbing
choose?
him in the ass with a needle,
Oh, of
and
course it is.
and Hawkeye just mid scream, open mouth, like you wouldn't believe it.
Margaret, that was fantastic. Oh no.
uh, and
Yeah. It's a time. No. Yeah. I don't have much more to say about Hawkeye. A lot of Hawkeye is he is our main character from the first step, the pilot to the finale. His character arc and some of the stories his character has are it's a long burn. Season 1 to season 2, I think the biggest change is he gets a little less lecherous. But in order to really have good conversation about Hawkeye, we're gonna have to wait until season 4, 5, up into season 8. There are some key, still good, I think. Even getting that late into the show, some good character development and moments for Hawkeye. There's some rough ones in there too, but yeah, I and again, with everything we're talking about, audience, please chime in. Let us know what you're thinking. It's Hawkeye is kind of our baseline, our anchor for the show. So him not changing a whole lot right now is it makes sense. Who do you want to talk about next, Ethan?
that's a great question. You should. I suppose we're sort of on to the twofers, if you will. We could go with the with Frank and or Margaret, or we could go Father Mulcahy and or Klinger.
Let's go. You know what? You know what? Larry Linville's role as Frank is usually underappreciated because he's the bad guy. Let's talk about Frank.
Mhm.
Frank got worse. But in the
To
best way.
nobody's surprise. Yeah.
Frank. I said it before. I am appreciating Larry Linville so much more with this watch through for the podcast. I forget because of how bad Frank gets later in the show. I forget how funny he is, and how funny Larry is playing him. It's so great.
Well,
Um,
and the other thing is, I have to say, it takes a special kind of actor and a very talented one to make a villain dislikable, to make you genuinely not like them. And I don't think we're quite at. Of course, we're not at the apex of Frank's awfulness, from from what I've
mhm.
come to understand about the show. But Larry Linville just does such a good job.
Yeah, and at the start of this season, he is still very much kind of slapsticky bad guy. The 5 o'clock Charlie getting the gun, uh, being late to the party and not wanting to help, and then realizing it could get him a medal for the good of the outfit, where the where they shelled Tai Dong, and then he realizes, oh, but if I help Hawkeye and Trapper, I might get a medal, and that roundabout ends up being what pushes the general to investigate the matter further because too many people are in on it. Um, and but then we get a couple episodes where it's like, oh, Frank's starting to show more of his true colors. Like, we have the couple of racist comments. We have the whole episode George, which is Frank literally. Again, we talked about it at length in that episode, but basically going to be destroying someone's life. Um, it's tricky because even after that episode, I'd say, I'm not a defender of Frank. There are things he has done and will do that are unquestioningly not good. They are bad. They are evil is not the word I want to use. Evil is a very strong word. I don't think Frank is evil, but severely reprehensible actions Frank will do.
Yeah.
However, we have not gotten to some of the episodes that give us a little bit of more backstory on Frank. I think Frank is a damaged person, and that hurt. I think Frank is a good example of the hurt people hurt people. You had a great insight into Frank where you mentioned, based on some of the stuff he said and done, strict overbearing father, religious mother, mean older brother. That to me fits Frank and can explain a lot of his issues.
And I have to say again, to Larry Linville's credit, I mean, for you to be able to armchair psychology a character like that
Mhm.
is more than anything just speaking to his talents as an actor.
Mhm. Because the thing I get with Frank, and I'm gonna tease a little bit of, we're gonna have a long Frank episode at some point in the next couple seasons. I don't know what episode specifically is gonna trigger it, but I'll know it when it happens, and we will have a discussion about it. It's probably gonna be season 4, season 5. I think Frank, picked on by his brother, not like, didn't have many friends. He's looking for a group to be a part of and be accepted. And I don't want to use the word that I'm about to use because I don't think Frank is this, but I think it's a similar path for Frank to how people get radicalized. They are looking for friends, they're looking for a community. They they find people who are not their friend but that accept them, and in order to get more of that acceptance, he parrots that group of people. For Frank, that is the pro-military, pro-America, religious, the 1950s version of like the America First idea type thing. I think Frank does some reprehensible shit, but I can see how he got there. He's not evil. He's not evil. He's not like Sauron in Lord of the Rings. He's not evil for the sake of evil and darkness. He is a person who he got there because of choices he made, but also the environmental factors around him. I think Frank is fascinating. I'm having so much fun appreciating Frank. I'm sorry. Like I can't wait to discuss, because again, I think, and we're gonna talk about Margaret next. Margaret and Frank had a couple tiffs this season. It's not all sunshine and lollipops there in uh the Houlihan Burns camp. And I think I've alluded to it. I think I think Frank, everyone has something that they're using to cope with the war. Henry has golf and fishing. Hawkeye has comedy. Trapper has being Hawkeye's sidekick. I don't know. Um
Womanizing.
with the womanizing for a bunch of the guys. Klinger has, whether he knows it or not, making clothes. Radar has, as we'll learn in season 3, his animals. Frank has Margaret. With as unstable and as needing for friendship and a sense of belonging that Frank has, I would like to pose a question to you, Ethan.
Hmm.
If Frank were to lose Margaret, relationship wise, Margaret doesn't get like killed, but
Yeah, of course.
if Margaret were to say, you know what, Frank, screw you, I'm done, I'm dating this person, or I'm not seeing you anymore, whatever that case may be, what happens to Frank? What happens when you don't have the one thing that you're clinging to?
To sort of parrot off of what you said, I think Frank has bought hook, line, and sinker the sort of idealized 1950s war machine propaganda, find brotherhood, find belonging in the military. And the only other person who really fits that to a T, at least in this stage of the show, is Margaret. So having that to hold on to cling on to like that, to sort of fulfill that sense of belonging, even if it isn't necessarily the community that he's looking for, even if it is just the one person, is probably the one thing keeping him from going down a very dark, I would even almost go as far as to say dangerous path.
Okay.
Because if there is absolutely one person I do not want to be full of rage, it is the person taking a bullet out of my abdomen in a war zone.
There you go. And I will say some of my favorite Frank moments, I think some of my favorite positive Frank moments are moments where he feels like he's part of the group. And
Yeah,
we've seen a couple examples of that, but there are some other examples going forward where there's a great one. There's a great one at the beginning of season 5 where Hawkeye and Hawkeye and another couple characters are on the same page for a second, and it's like, oh, this could have been a turning point, but we'll get there when we get there. But yeah, Frank is going to be an interesting one to watch, I think. With that being said, Margaret, we got some serious Margaret development this season.
I am very happy for that. Eh,
Specifically, obviously, Hot Lips and Empty Arms, but
mhm.
also a little bit in Carry On Hawkeye was another good one for her. Um, I'd say even not so much Crisis. There was another one in there. I can't remember which one. I think it was mainly just those two. I thought there was another good Margaret moment, but I can't think of it. Kim, there's a little bit of Margaret, soft Margaret Houlihan moment as opposed to Major Houlihan moment in Kim. But how we feel about Margaret? Tell me about
I
Margaret.
I appreciate the character development in the early seasons because I do accept that this is just the end of season 2 and the show goes on for quite a bit longer. But a lot of these characters I feel like we have mostly been talking about in terms of the groundwork that they are laying or the potential that they have. Margaret is making some very real steps that I would say probably started back in season 1 at Sticky Wicket.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So to see that that development is just really nice, and I am glad that we saw as much of her as we did. I think, of course, we could stand to see her a little more, but there's
Mm-hmm.
very few characters that you can't say, "Oh, I wish we could see them more."
Yeah, I think the big similar to what we just said about Frank. I think the thing for Margaret this season is reminding us that she is a person. I think that is the one thing that they can never really do with Frank is they can't have a Hot Lips and Empty Arms type episode for Frank where it's like, there's this thing that's bothering him that's kind of setting him on edge. They're able to do it with Margaret because they haven't made her into this cartoonish villain. They did a little bit in season 1. She was a little bit cartoonish villain sometimes, but that's cuz she was tied to the hip with Frank.
Well, and they didn't try and retcon that. They just showed another side of her character, not super early on, but decently enough that you can set up a really good character arc. and
Yeah.
then allowed it to continue through into season 2 a little bit.
Yeah, and I think weirdly, I think the best thing about Margaret that any character said this season was actually Frank. And
Elaborate.
it's when Margaret is frustrated, uh and in her tent after reading the letter saying, she doesn't have a life here, no one respects her, no one likes her in the camp. And Frank says, "Oh, Margaret, it's only the people who know you who don't respect you. It's because you hide all your goodness." And damn, I listened to the episode back. Talk about I can't say straight white male, but talk about dumb young white male perspective on watching a TV show. I think I think it was you and Bella Sissa that commented that Margaret's tent, all woman on the inside, all military on the outside, and it's like I had like a solid 15 seconds of stun lock because I'm like, damn, that's been staring me in the face for the entire time I've watched this show, and I never really thought about it. Because that is something that will come up in the future with Margaret. She loves her service to the army, but she is a woman. She still wants the things that every little girl, every teenager, every young lady, every adult woman wants. She wants the husband, sorry, the husband, the kids, the house, the life, the thing. So yeah, it's Margaret too is a because she is with the show. Her and Alan Alda. I think this is not a spoiler. I've mentioned this to you before. She and Alan Alda are the only characters from the pilot that make it to the finale. So her story, much like Hawkeye, is gonna play out over a much longer time period than a lot of the other characters. And I think it her Hawkeye and Margaret benefit greatly from that, I think. So with that being said, what would you like to see from Margaret in season 3? What should the universe gift Margaret in season 3, Ethan?
I don't know enough sense to leave Frank. Like, do we have to
Damn,
wait
that's
a while?
crazy.
Yeah.
So I'll say this. Looking at season 3 and what I know of season 4 and 5, I think we're mostly going to be status quo for the Frank Margaret relationship. There's going to be some moments of uh it's gonna still teeter totter between the oh Frank and oh Frank. You know. I
Sure.
think through season 3 it's gonna teeter totter. Season 4 and 5 is where that's gonna get fun. And by fun I mean, ooh, spill the tea, sis. Uh tell, let's just watch this relationship crash and burn. But
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, Margaret, we're looking forward to more Margaret. Who are we missing?
Klinger and Father Mulcahy, I think.
Not, I think weirdly, if you don't mind me saying, I think there's less to say about Klinger and Father Mulcahy in season 2 than there was in season 1.
I would absolutely agree with that. I think
They were just kind of
the
there.
yeah. Uh, I'm curious to see what happens with Father Mulcahy because I don't think much should happen to him.
Mhm.
I think in a war zone more than anything, if you are going to be the spiritual leader at a camp, you need to be sort of consistent. Uh, you know,
Mhm.
a port in a storm, if you will.
Yes, I think you are right in that sentiment. And weirdly, again, knowing all things in the future, I think weirdly that is what happens, but also it becomes a source of frustration. And it'll be interesting to see I mean, I say it'll be interesting to see. I think it's fascinating, but I think it'll be interesting to go through and experience that and kind of pick it apart based on how Father McKay. And I kind of lied. I say that Margaret and Hawkeye are the only characters that make it from pilot to uh, finale. Technically, Father Mulcahy does too as a character. He is there in the pilot, and he is there in the finale. But in terms of their character actually having meaningful development, Father Mulcahy doesn't really start getting that until I I would say season 4 and 5. He's still around and he still has great story moments, but I don't think we start focusing on him as a main driving plot and character development person until season 4 and 5. But yeah, it's difficult to say anything about Father McKay because we only got him like 2 or 3 times this season.
Yeah, I just want more of him and more Klinger, and that is all I really have to say.
Klinger, although we did get a couple iconic Klinger moments in this
Yeah, 100%. The
this
big red
season.
bird with the
The
fuzzy
big red
pink
bird
feet.
with fuzzy pink feet, and the multiple attempts to persuade Colonel Blake to let him go home. Colonel, what do I have to do to get out of here?
Hey, up close, you're a guy.
Far away too. Damn, I forget. Yeah, deal me out's the thing that exists. Um, you know what? On that note, we love them so much. I would be remiss if we didn't mention them. Let's talk about our 3 favorite guest appearances of this. Well, let's talk in general about the guest appearances. There are 3 big ones that we can talk about, but any other than the big 3, are there any guest appearances that we feel are notable and want to discuss?
I don't really know if it's notable, but I will say, the guitar playing dentist, was that in Operation Noselift?
5 o'clock Charlie.
That was 5 o'clock Charlie. That
Yes.
was that was I don't know why that sticks in my mind, but I
Yeah.
it does, and yeah.
The guitar playing dentist, with the great line of, men like Frank, they're indestructible.
Yeah.
That and I promised before I told my wife before I left I wouldn't drink or have another woman till I saw her again. Hit me with a blast. Make it a quick one. I got a date later. So great. Um, I'll give a shout out. I think Edgar, the kid who played Kim, only credit on IMDb was that episode. Okay. Um, there were a couple other notable one-off appearances, but we're gonna save them for future episodes because they come back as different characters. Uh,
Yeehaw.
I recall saying that I believe I have a theory about the pregnant Korean lady in the trial of Henry Blake. That actress comes back to play another character, and I have a head canon about that character, so we will discuss that when it comes up. But yeah, the big 3. Well, hang on. I'll mention George. I think that was a great standout one-off uh character. Uh, I mean, he's the title of the episode. I think that is
Yeah.
reason enough. Uh, we're not going to talk about Nose Job. Um, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. What's that poor actor's name who showed up in Bananas, Crackers, and Nuts and Nose Job? Because damn, that's unfortunate.
You could say
Uh,
literally any name and I'd believe you.
I know you'd believe me, but the internet is the internet, and I don't want them angry at me. And it's also I keep calling the episode the Nose Job. It's Operation Nose Lift. I think it's just funnier to call it the Nose Job because who cares? If you're out there defending Operation Nose Lift, tell me.
Was it Stuart
Um,
Margolin?
it's Stuart Margolin. Yeah. I love Stuart Margolin. I love his energy, but the weird, creepy pervert for Margaret character he plays both times is man, that did not age well. I'm sorry. Um, you have tremendous jowl potential. Have I, has anyone told you that with a little work you could have the jowls of a goddess? God damn. Hang on, never mind. Stuart Margolin's fantastic. We love
Yep, you know what?
lines are so insane. And the when he's is oh my yeah, it's the episode. Get your hands off me or I'll scream. You'll scream, you'll sing, you'll become a symphony.
Oh my god. I forgot.
It doesn't age well at all, but goddamn if those aren't some of the funniest lines in those episodes. Uh, and then back to bananas, crackers, and nuts. I was framed. It was all set up. It was the little guy with the soup. Uh, so yeah, let's not beat around the bush. The big three, the three characters that we love, two of whom we're going to see a lot more of. Let's start with the one that unfortunately we're not going to see any more of. Captain Pack, played by everyone's favorite or car waxing karate master, Mr. Miyagi. Man, I want more Captain Pack. I'm so upset we don't get more Captain Pack. I think there are so many opportunities for him to be a connection to the civilian population and the country that this war is taking place in. And Pat Morita is funny as fuck. I forgot how freaking hilarious he is as Captain Pack. But your thoughts on ROK representative Captain Pack?
He is just so good every time he's in an episode. Deal Me Out, he was spectacular. LIP, he was spectacular. It is a shame we don't get him more, but you know what? I am grateful for the time we had with him. I am focusing on how much he added while he was here.
Excellent. Excellent. Which one should we do next?
Dealer's choice.
Edward Winters as Captain Halloran, nay Private Carter, nay Captain Louise Klein, nay, you know him, you love him, Colonel Sam Flagg. Ethan, you're not ready. You are not ready for the recurring appearances of Colonel Flagg. You're so not ready. He is a joy to behold.
I believe that.
And
He 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 has done so good so far, and the fact that he comes back playing quote unquote himself really gets me hot and bothered. I can't wait to see
yeah,
what he does.
there is a moment. There are several episodes that Flagg appears in going forward, but there's one where you're not expecting him to show up, and when he comes in, you're hit. It's so insane. It's such you never. He's like the Spanish Inquisition. You're never expecting Colonel Flagg, but once he shows up, why the fuck are you here? But I'm here for it. I'm ready. So
Mary had a little lamb. Stop. My dog has fleas. Stop.
that is such the perfect. Such the perfect. Colonel Flagg, that's not my real name. Oh boy. Do you like the jukebox, son? I'm gonna smash your head through the glass and pull your nose at the coin return. Is there anything else you need, sir, before I go to the latrine? And then you were so excited to get a regular psychiatrist. Let's give it up for Alan Arbus, praise be unto him, Captain Sidney, or is it Major Friedman or Captain? It's Major Sidney Friedman.
Thanks for the house call, Doc.
God, him and Pat Morita. I'm so angry we only got them for one episode. They're such a great. That's an interesting joke, Sam. Thanks for seeing me, Sydney. Oh no. Who's she? Who the hell is she? That's my wife. That's an interesting joke, Sam. Oh God. Fondling your chips is very infantile, Henry. Not now, Sydney. Colonel, not now, Radar. God,
What's the basis for gambling, Sydney? Sex.
Really? I don't know. They told me to say it. Sex is why we gamble. Sex is why we drink. Sex is why we give birth. It's so good. I'm so happy. He has some incredible episodes. He has. I'm gonna. I'm not gonna spoil it. One of Mike James's favorite episode of MASH is a Sydney episode, and probably my favorite episode of season 5 is a Sydney episode. I am so enthused to get to
Do
the.
we get him in season 3? Do you know?
You know what? That is a great question because I don't think we get him in every season. I don't think there's enough appearances left of him to be in every season going forward. But let me do a quick skim. Yes, yes, we do.
Oh, yes. I don't want to know when. I just needed to know.
I think we get a phone call to him, and then we get a brief appearance of him during again one of my favorite season 3 episodes. So yeah, um, yeah, Sydney's wonderful. We can talk more about Sydney in the future, and I think that's about it for characters. Um, yeah, and again, audience, if you agree, disagree, or have continued thoughts about characters going that we just talked about, please share them. You ready to see some statistics, Ethan? Let's get to everyone's. I don't know if it's everyone's favorite part of the episode, but it's my favorite part because it's the most interesting to me. Let's talk about the episode ratings for the season. As you guys know, we ask for your ratings of the episodes. Uh 0 to 5. Based on again, they're arbitrary ratings. We've said you can give an episode a 5 because Sydney's in it. You can give an episode a 1 because Frank's in it. We would like a little bit more nuance than that, but I think we have been really successful in getting ratings this season. And I think I'm looking at the chart now. There are some episodes where we had 3 to 4 times the amount of ratings, and there are some episodes where we have barely any at all. And I think that's also in its own right a metric of how much that episode is maybe not loved, but stirs the emotions of the MASH community, which is also kind of a factor we have to consider. But as per usual, we're going to start with the bottom three first. The bottom 3 episodes, and I am temporarily, even though you've had the opportunity to look at this, I am temporarily going to remove your vision privileges
You
because I want it to be
bastard.
slightly a surprise. All
Okay.
right, so the bottom 3, and I don't want to say the worst episodes of season 3 because there is no season 3 episode, or season 3, season 2. There is no season 2 episode that is below a 3.0. So all these episodes are above the middle average for a 5-point rating system, which says something because there were a handful of season 1 episodes that were below 3.0. There are 4 episodes that are in season 1 that were below that threshold, and they were pretty significantly below that threshold. So the fact that there are none in season 2 in and of itself says something. Ethan, are you ready to hear the 3 lowest rated episodes of season 2?
Lay it on me.
Coming in at third lowest rated episode, Local Indigenous Personnel, LIP. Do you remember this episode, Ethan?
I do remember this episode. I'm surprised it ranks into the bottom 3. I don't remember it being a particularly good episode. I remember the episode,
This is
but I
the
don't
this
remember
is
it being
the
particularly bad.
this is the bonk racism bad episode. Hawkeye is dating the nurse that says, "Oh, you've been spending the whole episode trying to get." She doesn't say that. That'd be a bit too meta. You spent
Yeah.
all this evening trying to arrange a marriage between one of our guys and a gook, and Hawkeye's like, "Excuse me, what?" And she just like doubles down 4 times, and it's like, "We get it, you're racist."
Mhm.
Yeah, not the most subtle portrayal of race issues that we've ever seen on television, but yeah, it was an all right episode. And that's where the coach from Rocky, Paulie, Burt Young as Lieutenant Willis. You also said Lieutenant Regina Hoffman was very attractive, but then she was racist, and much like Hawkeye, you were not as enthused.
I stand
All
by
right.
that.
Any yeah, again, not a bad episode, but just kind of you tried to say something about racism and you didn't really do a good job of it. It's a little and it was not well paced either, if I remember correctly from some of
Yeah.
our notes.
Yeah, that's that because we find out that Lieutenant Regina is like horribly racist in the last 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Among other things, but that's just what comes to mind.
A
So,
handshake must be a weirdo. Because she gives Hawkeye handshakes instead of a kiss. And you had the great heterosexual perspective on why that was incredibly weird. Um,
oh, well, I wouldn't call any of
I
first of
believe
all,
I
my perspective great or any heterosexual perspective great, regardless of who it's from, but here we are.
no, I think I just asked you outright, like, hey, what's your modus operandi at first date? Kiss, no kiss, and you gave some good context for why Regina's weird. What do you think is the penultimate worst episode, the second worst episode?
Oh,
I know you saw the list, but I don't expect you to remember.
yeah, good because my memory is not that good. Um,
Oh, and by the way, local indigenous personnel 3.12 out of 5. So again, yeah, not a terrible episode, but not a great one.
is it one of the anthologies?
Like
Not
a Dear Dad?
anthologies. No, not a Dear Dad. Just tell me because I'm very curious.
Operation Noselift
Oh,
at
I should have been able to
3.1.
guess that. Actually, yep,
3 point, and I
that's
want
my
to
bad.
compare it. I don't want to allude that Stuart Margolin is the reason that this episode was not great. But since he appears in two very similar episodes as a similar character, I do want to compare the episode. 3.1 for Operation Noselift. And he was Bananas, Crackers, and Nuts, I believe is the name of the other
Yep.
episode. Which one do you think we rated higher collectively as a group?
I have to imagine that we oh god. I have to imagine
Yeah.
that we rated bananas, crackers, and nuts a little higher. Not by much, but I'm guessing like a
Good guess.
3.11.
3.41 actually.
Oh wow.
There were one or two people that did feel passionately about that episode. Um but yeah, between you and I hated Bananas, Crackers, and Nuts. I gave it a 2. You gave it a 3.5. For Operation Noselift, it's strange. You know what I think it is? I think it's we had a lot less. This is the lowest audience participation episode of season 2. So I rated it a 2.5. You rated it a 2.1. And the audience, the three people from the audience rated it 3, 4, and 3.9. So I'm going to ask if you did not rate Operation Noselift, do not base your rating on how you want to see the average number move. But if you didn't have a chance to rate Operation Noselift, please do, because I feel like that is a bit of a skewed metric. But for now, it is sitting at 3.1, so worse than Bananas, Crackers, and Nuts. I do agree. I think that storyline is a little less interesting than Bananas, Crackers, and Nuts was, because at least you had the fun, like, first half where Hawkeye was being silly in Bananas, Crackers, and Nuts.
This is my liver. You can't have any.
Filthy liver thief.
I guarantee I already know what the worst rated episode is.
What's the
100%.
what's the worst rated episode of season 2, Ethan?
Henry and Love.
Henry and Love at a startlingly high, I think, 3.04.
That is startlingly high.
But here's the thing. From what I said earlier, it's a goofy episode, and I think it gets the low rating because the freaking Nancy Sue Parker is just annoying and bubbly. But as a Henry episode, it's not terrible. It's hard because again, a 3.0 is not a bad episode, but it certainly is not a good one.
Yeah,
Um,
to kind of piggyback on that, it's not necessarily the episode itself is bad. I think a lot of the issue I took with that was sort of Nancy Sue Parker and especially the age gap in there. Like,
mhm.
I am willing to admit my own biases and how they influenced my rating. If we are also all willing to admit that it was not exactly a spectacular episode anyway.
Yeah.
Be, be,
We both
just
rated it the same.
because.
We both rated it the same 2.0, and weirdly, we were the lowest two ratings. Uh,
Oh,
the highest
maybe
was a
we're
4
just
point.
assholes.
The highest was a 4.2, and I think that person needs to seek professional help.
Yeah, you know what? Whoever you are, get in contact with me. I'm not on Twitter. I think I'm on Instagram. Just get in contact with me.
I will say it's a
Let's hash it
silly
out.
episode. It's a silly episode. It's just a little like it's similar. I will compare this to the worst episode of season 1, which the worst episode of season 1 has this one beat handily. I
Hmm.
think the thing with Henry and Love and Edwina is the cringy factor.
Yeah,
There's parts of it that are uncomfortable, not because it's gross or weird. It's just this is
I did not like having to
uh.
watch her do her cheerleading dance for 2
for like 2
minutes.
minutes straight. Ba
Like,
ba
like,
da 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 da. Ba da 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 da. God damn.
like, what were you trying to do? Were you trying to pay homage to the movie and their entire football last third? Were you just trying to be weird? I don't know. Anyway, you know what? I think we've
Man,
shit on it enough.
every time I think of the football scene from the movie, all I can think of is bang. Oh my god, they shot him. Hot lips, you incredible nincompoop. That's the end of the quarter. Uh all right, so yeah, those are the bottom 3 episodes. Let us know what you think. I mean, you can say we're wrong, but this was a group effort, so blame yourself a little bit too.
Except for the person who rated who rated Henry in Love at a 4.2. I'm serious.
That is in fact your fault.
We're gonna have to have a discussion, you and I. We can do it
All
off the
right.
books. It'll just be between us, but you know.
In a field with a brick. Don't worry about it. No. Your opinion is valid and we love you.
Absolutely, 100%. I would just like to understand the reasoning behind it.
I can go find it and we can hear their reasoning if you want.
You know what? Let's do it after the episode. I don't want what I say to be on record.
Oh, good. All right, so the top 5 episodes of season 2. What do you so I'm this episode or this season slapped really hard.
Yeah.
So top 5, do you have a personal like top 2 or 3 that you would hope to see in the top 5?
Of course, I'm gonna go safe for the first two and say I'm sure they're on there, and that is Deal Me Out and 5 O'clock Charlie. And
Mhm.
I genuinely hope George also breaks the top 5.
All right, coming in at number 5, fifth most rated episode of the season is season 2, episode 22, George.
Hey.
Right by 1/100th of a point, it beat out number 6. Number 6 was Incubator. So
Hmm.
number 5 is George at a 4.48. And I'll mention that this little chart that we're looking at will be shared on all the places and it will be on the video and all that jazz. So yeah, 4.48, solid episode. I have nothing. I mean, great. We spoke about it for damn near 3 hours. Fantastic episode. Biased as a gay man myself.
Oh
Best.
my god, you're gay? When were you
Ethan,
gonna
where have
tell
you been?
me?
Best character comes out in a TV show, save for maybe the episode of The Golden Girls. Genuinely a fantastic episode. Ethan,
Yes.
George, any comments?
You know, I
As a
don't know.
straight white man, no.
Yeah, you know, that's exactly what we need in the discussion of heterosexuality, another straight white male opinion. And here it is, folks. No, you know, I feel like if we let ourselves, we will go down another rabbit hole with this episode.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that I think we have to accept that we had our time during the George episode that we did, and move on and spare these people from another rant.
I
Other
do
than
I do want to make one comment because I still feel like there was some scatterbrained, not super focused conversation from me, and I want to clarify one thing. I'm gonna look up the term because I saw this term shared by someone who is in the uh LGBT community, and I think it explains uh kind of the vibe I get sometimes. Have you ever heard the phrase too much bunting?
I have not.
So not bunting as in baseball, bunting as in like decoration. Too much uh too much fluff, too many flags essentially. Too many flags, too many decorations. It obscures your true message.
Gotcha. Okay.
That is the feeling I have about, and it's a super hot take to have during Pride Month. Um I get the feeling, and I mentioned that I don't really like. I'm gay, but the LGBT community doesn't always really reflect my thoughts, and I think a lot of it comes from the term "too much bunting." There's so much flags and stickers, and you know, buy our rainbow branded thing in the month of June type stuff that takes away from the we're normal people and just want to live normal lives. Again, I compared it similarly. I think there's a lot of organizations and uh, activist groups and political groups that have too much bunting. But that I heard that phrase used, and I think it really was a much better summarization of my thoughts. So I wanted to share it. But yeah, George coming in at number 5. Number 4 with a 4.59 out of 5 based on all your beautiful ratings. Season 2, episode 14, Hot Lips and Empty Arms. I
That was a good episode.
That was a fantastic episode. Yeah, great. We had Bella Sissa on. Thank you again, Bella Sissa. She's planning to come back. Be prepared.
Can't wait.
Um, we have so many episodes for that guests want to be on,
No, I
and
can't wait. Get her on the
we're
call
gonna
right now.
we're gonna have to have a conversation at some point about where we're gonna slot some of these guests in. We may even have the podcast first double header, 2 guests on one show. Um, but that's for later. But yeah, we talked about it when we talked about Margaret's character. Hot Lips and Empty Arms is really the first big stepping stone in developing Margaret better as a character. And we're gonna have fortunately, we're gonna have many opportunities for discussing that. So coming in top 3 now, coming in third at a 4.73. What do you think the third one is? I'll give you a hint, Ethan. You knocked 1 and 2 out of the park with your initial guesses, and you knocked number 5
Hmm.
out of the park with your initial guess. What do you think number 3 could be? What would you put up there on the pedestal with "Deal Me Out" and 5 o'clock Charlie?
That's a tough one. That is a really tough one. I am wondering if it isn't. Uh, is it the sniper?
No, actually, the sniper is surprisingly. I don't want to say surprisingly low. I think it's. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 6, 7. Sniper's 8th.
Well, can't win them all.
But you know what's fun? You know what's great? I think that just says Sniper's 8th at 4.28. That's just a credit to how good season 2 is. Number 3, third best episode based on your audience ratings. Season 2, episode 21, Crisis, 4.73 out of 5. I think that is the one that I think surprised me with how high up it ended up getting rated. But at the same time, it's similar to what was the one? There was one in season 1 that I'm like, there's no earthly way that one made it to the top 5. The Army Navy game in season 1 was the one that surprised me. And I think Crisis surprised me because it's a dead simple episode, but it just lets the actors shine in their various roles and be silly. And I think that's the big strength of it. So,
Yeah. The visual humor is also rampant in that episode, and I really appreciated that. Like by the end of the episode, Henry is sitting in a completely barren office with a desktop.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep. Oh boy. All right, number 1 and number 2. Let's go to number 2. Okay, so you guessed number 1 and number 2. Which one, what order do you think they're in? Which
uh,
one is number 2?
mm,
So just for reference, Crisis is a 4.73. This number 2 is a 4.74. It
I
just edged
think
out Crisis.
I think that it goes 5 o'clock Charlie in number 2, and
You are correct. Season 2, episode 2, 5 o'clock Charlie is the second highest rated episode of season 2. I got
I
nothing more to say because obviously it is, because that episode's fucking hilarious. There
Five
he
o'clock
is.
Charlie, his airplane, and his astigmatism. I love that we both went to make the same joke at the
Yes.
same time.
There he is. And we say bon voyage as he flies the blue lady of the skies. It's so dumb. I had that thought while I was at the air show this weekend. I would love to get that plane, a replica of that plane or a reproduction of that plane, and just take it to air shows in that livery for no reason. For the 5 people out of 3,000 that would recognize it and laugh.
Holding a big old pipe wrapped in duct tape of as you do
Yeah.
low flybys.
That would be my thing. Is I would have them go, coming in from Air Show Right. You know him, you love him. Direct from North Korea. 5 o'clock, and no one except like 2 old dudes in the audience would get it.
Yeah, but they would be laughing their asses off.
Dude, 100%.
Yeah,
And I'd have to
don't.
figure out how to cut the throttle so it goes amp, 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 which is probably incredibly unsafe. But you know,
Dude, I've seen the videos coming out of these air shows lately. Like, let's not pretend that we care about safety.
dude, no. Side note, the accident that happened like a year and a half ago with the Commemorative Air Force and the B-17. No, I could tell based on how they were flying this air show, the safety was very prominent in their minds.
I
Yeah.
am glad to hear that. I'm very glad to hear that.
And on that note, that was an interesting. Yeah, if I won't get into it, but there are some very frustrating things that happened with that specific incident, and I had a good long talk with the Commemorative Air Force guys, the Southern California chapter. Uh, yeah, let's just say that hell hath no fury like an organization scorn, and that organization is taking care of its problems aggressively.
Taking care of business.
Because the Commemorative Air Force they are incredible. Audience, I got to see, and again, I'll post some pictures up on the social media for you guys to look at. I got to see one of the last 5 flyable Japanese Zeros this weekend, and it was fucking awesome. Like, the Commemorative Air Force does incredible work, and I don't want that one accident that one dumb person who probably shouldn't have been air boss being air boss caused. Yeah, it's a whole thing. We won't go
Yeah,
off on that.
they do a lot of good. Unfortunately, the bad got so very publicized because it was very bad.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, 5 o'clock Charlie coming in at number 2. I can't say much more about it because at this, if you're in the top 5, these episodes kind of speak for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But and coming in at number 1, Ethan guessed it correctly. Season 2, episode 13, Deal Me Out, with a near perfect score of 4.99 out of 5.
Damn.
This 5 o'clock Charlie was 4.74. That's the next best episode. That's 15 points of difference, which doesn't seem like a lot. But when you're averaging out a bunch of people's scores, it is. I will be shocked if that is not the number 1 episode by the end of the 11th season. I think Deal Me Out is such a perfect episode of MASH. And again, there are episodes I like. I don't want to say I like more than Deal Me Out, because there are definitely episodes I like more than Deal Me Out for specific reasons, but on its whole, Deal Me Out is such a well-rounded, silly, fun mix of characters. It's so wonderful.
Yeah, I believe I said something to this effect in the episode, but I'm going to say it again because I believe it. When I think of what a perfect episode of MASH should be, this is as close as I can get to.
Yeah. Again, I wish we could say more, but we did a whole episode on all these episodes, so go listen to those. Um, but yeah, you had the great guest characters, you had a wonderful premise. It was basic all the actors just got to have fun and be silly, and it's wonderful. And it has some of the most iconic like screenshots and lines.
Yeah,
But
shoot,
yeah.
we've referenced the episode what a half dozen times at this point
Yeah.
before we even revealed it as our number one winner. So,
Now, audience, I know what you're thinking, but Anthony, you should tell us what the top episodes are now that we have 2 seasons worth of data. No, I'm not. Because what we're going to do is we're going to wait till we get through all 11 and then we're going to do like a big like country music top 40 countdown of the best episodes of MASH. So, I'm forcing you to wait until then. But yeah, as for season 2, those are your top 5. George, Hot Lips and Empty Arms, Crisis, 5 O'Clock Charlie, and Deal Me Out. So yeah. Um, what else do we need to discuss about season 2, Ethan? I think we pretty much hashed it out. What would you
I go ahead.
what would you like to see broad strokes for season 4 or season 4? Yeah. Yeah, Ethan, ignore season 3. What do you want to see in season 4? No, what do you want to see in season 3? Like I know we've talked about some character specific stuff, but kind of are you happy with the direction MASH is heading? Is there anything you want to see them do? Any things you want to see them try to tackle, or maybe something they did try to tackle that you want to see them tackle better? Like, what are your thoughts?
You know, it's a weird one, but I've said it before and I want to say it again. I want more time spent in Malibu Creek State Park because I can tell, you
Mm,
can tell, and something about it being filmed on their set there makes it feel so much
you want
better.
more MASH on location?
Exactly. There's nothing wrong with the soundstage that they shoot most of it on, or not most, but a lot of it on. But the natural light and the full camp setup at the Malibu Creek State Park just
I think
does
I think
something
that
for me.
trend does. I think they do film as they get more and more comfortable with doing stuff out at the ranch, and as the ranch gets a little bit more developed. From what I understand from a lot of the actors, the ranch was a hellscape for the first several years. Uh, no air conditioning, barely running water, pit toilet. Like it was not great.
Yeah.
But I do think if I were to just running through the episodes quickly, kind of snapshot by snapshot in my head, I do think we get more outdoor at the ranch episodes, and I think as we go on, because they're setting up that camp every to shoot every year, and they get better at it each time, and they're essentially essentially living there for more than half the year. It does. I think Mike Jameson mentions there's this nice little sweet spot in the series where the camp gets to feel really lived in, and it makes the show so much better. On top of the set dressing that I mean, we could fawn over that. We did it last year too. We fawned over all the beautiful set dressing. Um, if you have Henry Blake's engine piston from his desk somewhere in your collection, I will pay good money for it. Um, but that's beside the point. Yeah, I think
We
that is a
have to figure
trend.
out
That is a
when we're
trend
gonna
that you
be
are gonna find.
robbing the Smithsonian for
Man, don't tempt me.
Hawkeye's.
We
You
are
know,
we're gonna see a recreation of the swamp in less than a year. We're gonna go to Topeka. It's happening. I'm halfway saved up for the trip, Ethan. Prepare.
but are
We
you
have
living on a prayer?
no.
Oh,
God left me a long time ago. Um, yeah, I'm. Here's what I'm excited for season 3, and it's replicated in a lot of the things that the audience has said about season 2. They have found their stride. They have found what makes Smash tick. and they're going to improve upon it even more in season 3. So, yeah. We've been talking for a long time, but we are not leaving until we at least get a few words in from our audience because they support us so much and we love you all for it. From the Patreon, uh, I will take some comments about season 2, but before that, I do need to shout out the glorious Patreon supporters. And guess what, Ethan?
Mm-hmm.
There's another one.
Fucking why?
Ethan cannot understand why people give us money for
I
this.
can't comprehend it.
Because you're so fabulous. It's you. It's all you, Ethan.
If you keep doing that, my ego's gonna go out of control, and it's gonna be bad for everyone.
Again, a special thank you to the following Patreon supporters who do, for reasons Ethan cannot comprehend, send us money. Private Stuart Boyles, Private Sarah McIntosh, brand new Corporal J. Temple, Corporal Jared Gallagher, Corporal Derek B., Sergeant Timothy Burleson, Sergeant Louise Black, Lieutenant Mike Jameson, Lieutenant Leanne, Lieutenant Brad Ryder, and Lieutenant Bill Pauley. Thank you all so much. Uh, there are exciting things coming. And I know I keep saying that, but there are exciting things coming. And I will also shout out because I see them here. Thank you to the new members as well. We don't shout you out not because we don't want to, but we want to make special effort to point out the people that, again, for reasons Ethan and to some extent I can't understand, give us money. Brian, Carrie, Mark, Scott, thank you also for following along and being part of the Patreon. Please do not feel like you need to upgrade your tier. We're glad that you're here regardless. But there's exciting things that are going to be coming in the near future.
Yeah, and I just want to mention, like, you out there sitting, standing, working out, doing whatever it is you do, you're you're spending like time of your life listening to us. Are you okay? Do you do you need a hug? I can recommend some good therapists. Like, let's figure it. I don't understand it. I don't.
All right, now that we've gone off on that tangent, let's read some comments about season 2 and wrap this episode up because we have definitely been talking longer than we should have.
Shocker.
Jared Gallagher says it's definitely stronger than season 1. Brought us some bangers like 5 O'Clock Charlie, Deal Me Out, and Carry On Hawkeye. Pumped for season 3 of MASH and Best Care Anywhere. Sarah says, as far as the difference between the two season 1 and season 2, you can see a big growth in the way that Hawk and Trapper treat things that happen and how they see the war and seem to take it more seriously. Mike Jameson says consistency and focus are the big keys. The series started to focus its outlook on what it wanted to do, and the actors focused their characters into divine personalities. The second season was more consistently funny and well written than season 1, all because of the added focus brought by all the creative personnel. You can see why starting with this season, MASH became a pop culture staple and a sitcom royalty. Man, I just realized something as I was reading that, and I'm going to really hate myself, and I really pray to God that I do not need to use the backup audio. Anyway. Bella Sissa says this is the season where MASH started turning the corner from straight sitcom to more dramedy. There were still plenty of early season hijinks, but the characters were just beginning to find their true voices. We got a little more Klinger and Mulcahy, and some of the greatest guest characters. She says she tends to skip around season 1, but goes episode by episode in season 2. Can't wait to hear everyone's take on season 3. To me, that is when MASH really starts finding its stride. And Bill says, I enjoyed the increased character development. Wish we could have had more development of Trapper. Preach.
Thank
but
you.
he stayed Hawkeye's sidekick. The show is really getting its legs and figuring out what direction to go. Most excellent. And they can't wait and Bill can't wait to hear what we have to say about season 3.
I'm sorry, Bill.
Cue Ethan's God Why.
Yeah. You should just make that a button hooked on your keyboard. It would save my vocal cords a lot of stress.
And then to the hell site known as Twitter, we're going to run through a couple of the But Chief Smash Forever had many things to say. Season 2 is a good season with a mix of funny but also some dramatic aspects. Characters are definitely getting more developed. Um, Season 2 produced what he would say is some more of the most famous and loved episodes. 5 o'clock Charlie, Deal Me Out. Don't Eater says great season. Took what worked from season 1 and ran with it. Still a few weaker episodes, but the comedy is generally stronger. Yeah, basically everyone's saying season 2 is great. Uh yeah, I think that's only going to continue to be true as we go into season 3. I will say Spider Ham Lincoln says he's looking forward to his favorite MASH seasons 4 and 5. We are creeping ever closer to season 4 and 5. Personally, for me, I think it's hard to pick a favorite, but season 5 sticks with me because it was the first season I had on DVD and watched repeatedly. So, yeah, just the one season, it was a nightmare.
No,
Uh,
I understand.
so yeah, season 2 is over officially. The next episode is going to be a movie episode. We're gonna watch something. If you are a Patreon supporter and haven't seen, uh, there is a post on the Patreon. Been a week old now, but if you haven't seen it, go over there and give us your suggestions on what episodes you would like to see. And then we'll put a poll up based on those suggestions on Twitter, and we'll pick the best one. However, the next release day, 2 weeks from when you're hearing this, there probably won't be an episode. We are probably going to have to take a bye week because of my week that I'm working at the scout camp teaching shotgun shooting. We're going to try to maybe get it out and pre-uploaded before then, but I'd rather tell you now that there's not going to be an episode and then surprise you with one, as opposed to say there's going to be one and then have one not show up for 2 weeks. So be warned. And then at the end of the July, beginning of August, we'll dive into season 3, and it'll be a hoot and a holler. And I'm looking at the first episode of season 3, and I always forget this is how they choose to start season 3. Oh my god, you're not, Ethan. You are so not ready for this. But yeah. Any closing thoughts, Ethan? I know we're here much later than we normally are.
Oh, I don't know. Normally, I'd say some random bullshit, whatever pops to mind, but I want to reiterate it again because I never feel that I properly convey any of my thoughts. I may never fully understand why you people choose to listen to us with your limited time, but I appreciate the hell out of it. We both appreciate the hell out of it. Just really looking forward to season 3.
Excellent. All right, that'll be it, folks. This was a long one, but thank you for joining us. We'll catch you next time. We will let you know what movie we're going to watch so you can pre-watch it and join us to talk about it. Until then, though, we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Cousin Fred. My brother-in-law, Leroy.